Reportedly inside the home at the time. Fortunately, though, no one was hurt. Let's get right out to Beverly Crest. That's where...
This wasn't some random Hollywood scare. A woman is now facing attempted murder charges after gunfire hit Rihanna's home in broad daylight while her family was there. Nobody was hurt. Thank God, but let's be honest, that doesn't make this less terrifying. It makes it a near disaster. And the scariest part is how close this came to becoming a very different headline. Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe, because this story is not just wild. It's one of those cases where the headline is scary, but the real details are even worse. On March 8th, authorities say a woman drove to Rihanna's Beverly Crest property in Los Angeles and allegedly fired multiple shots at the home in broad daylight. No one was hit, but prosecutors say this was serious enough to lead to an attempted murder charge, along with multiple other felony counts. The woman charged is Rihanna Lizette Ortiz, 35, from Orlando, Florida, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. She is facing 1 count of attempted murder, 10 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and 3 counts of shooting at an inhabited dwelling. Prosecutors say she could face life in prison if convicted. And here's where the story stops sounding like random celebrity chaos and starts sounding genuinely horrifying. Prosecutors say Rihanna was home when this happened. Not just Rihanna. AP reports that A$AP Rocky, their 3 children, and Rihanna's mother were also on the property when the shots were fired. Nobody was physically hurt, but that detail changes everything. Because when people hear shots fired at a celebrity home, they usually imagine an empty mansion or rumor, maybe some overblown tabloid panic. But this was not that. This was broad daylight, an occupied property, and a situation that prosecutors are treating as a potential attempted killing, not some weird Hollywood misunderstanding. And the most unsettling part right now is that the motive still is not clear. Authorities have charged the case aggressively, but the public still does not have a full answer for why Rihanna's home was allegedly targeted in the first place. That uncertainty is part of what makes this feel even darker. First, this was not some vague disturbance near a celebrity's house. Prosecutors say that on March 8th at about 1:20 p.m., Rihanna Lizette Ortiz drove up to Rihanna's Beverly Crest property and allegedly fired a semi-automatic weapon multiple times at the house. They also say there were people on Rihanna's property and at an adjacent house when it happened, and that Ortiz was arrested a short time later in Sherman Oaks. That matters, because it tells you this wasn't just a scary headline inflated by gossip blogs. According to the district attorney, this was a broad daylight shooting at an occupied property, serious enough to bring an attempted murder charge. And the charges tell you just how close prosecutors think this came to becoming something even worse. AP reports Ortiz was charged not only with attempted murder, but also with 10 assault counts and 3 counts of shooting at an inhabited vehicle or dwelling. Prosecutors said those 3 shooting counts covered Rihanna's house or trailer and a neighbor's house, while the assault counts covered Rihanna, her family, 2 staffers, and 2 people in the neighboring home. So when people try to frame this like just another crazy Hollywood moment, that falls apart pretty fast. This wasn't random noise outside a mansion. This was gunfire allegedly hitting a property with multiple people there, in the middle of the day, across more than one part of the scene. That's why this story lands like a near disaster, not tabloid chaos. Now here's the detail that makes this story hit completely differently. Rihanna was not somewhere across the country when this happened. Prosecutors said she was on the property when the shots were fired, and AP reports A$AP Rocky, their 3 children, and Rihanna's mother were there too. That is the moment to stop sounding like another scary celebrity headline and start sounding like a nightmare that came way too close to turning into tragedy. Because an empty mansion is one thing, a home with a family. Inside it is something else entirely. And let's be honest, that one detail changes the emotional weight of the whole case. When people hear shots fired at a celebrity home, they usually picture distance, gates, security, staff handling it. But when you find out Rihanna and her family were actually there, the story suddenly feels much more human and much more terrifying. One wrong angle, one open door, one child in the wrong place, and this becomes a completely different headline. That's why this doesn't feel like random Hollywood chaos. It feels like a near disaster that ended without physical injuries only because things did not get even worse. And this is the part that kills the whole "maybe the media is exaggerating" excuse. This is no longer sitting in that blurry space between a scary headline and a real case. The Los Angeles County District Attorney formally charged Ivana Lizette Ortiz, 35, and the charge list is exactly why the story now feels bigger than celebrity gossip. She is facing 1 count of attempted murder, 10 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and 3 counts tied to shooting at inhabited property. And prosecutors have said she could face life in prison if convicted. That is not how the system talks about a misunderstanding. That is how the system talks when it believes something extremely serious happened. And the wording around the case makes it even darker. People, citing the criminal complaint, reported that prosecutors described the shooting as willful, deliberate, and premeditated. In other words, the case is not being framed like some chaotic spur-of-the-moment mess. It is being framed as something prosecutors believe was intentional enough to pursue at the highest level. So when people try to reduce this to just another wild Hollywood situation, that falls apart fast. Once you have formal charges like this, a protective order, and a prosecutor treating the case like a potential attempted killing, the conversation changes. This is no longer about celebrity chaos. It is about how close this may have come to becoming a tragedy, with a very different ending. And honestly, the most unsettling part of this whole case might be the part we still can't fully explain. Authorities have charged Ivana Ortiz and laid out the case as extremely serious, but as of the latest reporting, they still have not publicly established a clear motive or confirmed connection between Ortiz and Rihanna. That matters because when a case is as violent and the why is still blurry, the fear gets bigger. It stops feeling like one bad decision and starts feeling like something far more unpredictable. Now, yes, some outlets have pointed to social media posts and passed angry comments that may suggest fixation on Rihanna, but that is still not the same thing as a confirmed motive from investigators or prosecutors. And that distinction is important, because the internet loves to rush in and explain a story before the facts do. But right now, the cleanest version of the truth is this. A woman allegedly drove from Florida to Los Angeles. Gunfire hit Rihanna's property. Rihanna and her family were there, and the public still does not have a full official answer for why. That uncertainty is exactly what makes this feel darker than a normal celebrity crime story. So when you strip away the celebrity name, this is what the story really is. A woman allegedly drove to Rihanna's Los Angeles property in broad daylight, fired multiple shots, and is now facing attempted murder and 13 other felony counts in a case prosecutors say could carry life in prison if she is convicted. Rihanna was there. A$AP Rocky was there. Their 3 children were there. Her mother was there. And somehow, nobody was physically hurt. That is not a normal headline. That is the definition of a near disaster. And that is exactly why this story feels so disturbing. Not because it involves a superstar, but because it shows how thin the line can be between scary news and irreversible tragedy. The motive is still under investigation, and that uncertainty makes the whole thing darker, not lighter. Because when a case is as serious and the public still does not fully know why it happened, it leaves behind a different kind of fear. Celebrity culture loves to treat security threats like weird side stories that come with fame. But this one does not feel like background noise. It feels like a warning. If someone can allegedly get this close, in the middle of the day, while family is home, then the conversation is no longer just about celebrity obsession. It is about obvious danger. So tell me this. When does celebrity attention stop being just fan behavior and start being treated like a real public threat?